Welcome to ACC Nation. That's Will Oginen, and I'm Jim Quist. We're almost, close enough to Halloween that, you're going to start seeing some strange things on this program in the next couple of episodes. Just
What?
warning you.
I know. I normally don't drink Wisconsin beer, but it's
That,
what I got.
that's weird enough. Okay.
Yeah.
You got any cheese curds there with you?
Some couple weekends ago, actually.
Yeah. Feel them congealing and
Mm.
never mind. Yeah. Hey, some notes for people who should be interested in this. Evan from Red and White Podcast is going to be talking to NC State on Monday, October 9th. So that is coming up. Dan Bond, our national NCAA men's basketball analyst and color commentator, will be opening the door for us into the basketball season. That's coming up on Monday, October 23rd. So we're looking forward to both of those guests. We've got some other people that are we're working on in that time frame that we'll be adding on. So we're looking forward to hopefully being able to tell you that we'll have some additional people to talk about other things of interest to you.
Yeah.
Before we
So,
get
and
in,
while we're
yeah,
on that note, since we're promoting stuff, to those of you who ever been to Boston, I'm heading out there. I leave I'm there in what, 27 days.
27 days.
So
See, I
I'm
told
taking
you.
any and all recommendations. I know we had AJ Black on the show recently to help, and he's given me some ideas. I'm open to more.
Okay. All I can tell you is that anybody that's there on Chestnut Hill, as I warned you, things are going to get stranger as we get closer. So, yeah, if you've got something, make sure that you touch base with Will at Will's World MN on X, formerly known as Twitter, and
Still known as Twitter. Still not going to call it that.
let him know. There's plenty of great things to do in Boston. It's a great town. Driving wise, you people are insane, and that's all that needs to be said. You agree that that's a fact? Okay, everybody in Boston knows that driving is insane, and there's a Dunkin' on every block. So gotta get your coffee.
I don't need. I don't. I've got a Dunkin' in the next town over for me, so that's whatever. Don't really need that. Need that.
So a town that I used to live in had a bar on literally, well, more than one usually on every block. So it tells you everything you need to know. And there's parts of Boston that are the same way.
Hmm.
So hey, some things to get into here. Let me just start out by dropping this bomb. I think there are two coaches that need to be on the hot seat, and I really believe this. I was reluctant, but my God, I looked at the videotape. I spent time going over the highlights. Dave Doran at NC State, and I know what's going on there. We're going to get into details about that in just a moment. And Pat Narduzzi at Pitt, both of you ought to be on the hot seat, and you got some answering to do. You really do. I mean, the games this week and everything that's been going on has just sucked. What is going on with you guys? I mean, mediocrity is not good enough. It just isn't. Now, Will, tell us about what's going on the offensive side at NC State.
Yeah. Um. You're just looking at that game Friday night against Louisville, and you could tell they're just they weren't clicking. Just there was no rhythm whatsoever. They couldn't run the ball. I mean, Armstrong was making some just strange decisions that you would normally see from a freshman, maybe. But he's well into his college career, and it's almost over, and he's still making these plays. So came out today. on Monday that MJ Morris is going to be taking over as starting quarterback at NC State, which, yeah, who would have thought that coming into this season? We hear, about all about this, connection between Robert and I and Burden Armstrong, how everything's going to click and it's going to be 2021 Virginia all over again. And I've been trying to say, buyer beware. Like, there are a lot of things that 2021 Virginia offense had that this 2023 NC State does not have.
Yeah.
That 2021 Virginia team
Receiving
had a veteran experienced offensive line. Obviously, Oluwatimi grad transferred up to Michigan and became a decorated lineman. Just a ton of experience outside of that. And you had an NFL caliber receiver in Dontavian Wicks, who just recently caught his first NFL touchdown pass for the Packers. Yeah. And then Jelani Woods, who was a third round pick that in the 2022 draft. And he's had a pretty solid rookie campaign, has yet to play this year, I think, because he's been banged up. But that's things that this team does not have. And it was always presumptuous to say that just because those two were going to be together, along with Garrett Tuje, everything was just going to click instantaneously. That's not the case. They just don't have the weapon. I think Concepcion's a really good player, but he's still a freshman. He's not there yet.
Yeah.
The rest of the team just couldn't get anything going. I know Jordan Houston, leaving the team and deciding to sit out the rest of the season to grad transfer elsewhere, probably throw a wrench into plans, but in this day and age, it's his choice. Fair game nowadays.
That's right.
There's just a lot of issues with that offense. Can't say a bad thing about the defense. They're the reason they were in that game against Louisville on Friday night. But yeah, I think this is a necessary change. You gotta try something. It's clearly not working with Brennan, and we know MJ Morris can sling it a little bit. So what happens now? I think this is going to be a very telling of the future of the staff at NC State.
Yep. Here's my here's some comments that I have. Normally I don't come out and put a coach on a hot seat unless I really believe that there's something going on there that needs to be talked about. In this particular case with Dave Dorn, let's get into Brennan Armstrong for just a second. 10,000 career passing yards. It is not like he's incapable of making things happen. However, in this game and this season has just been horrendous. And I don't know what the deal is, if it's Brennan or if it's Robert and I. And I found it very odd that Dave Doran is the guy who came out, and I will give Dave Doran credit here for doing this, because a lot of coaches today don't do this, and they should. He said, I'm the head coach. This is on me. I take full responsibility. I'm not throwing Brennan under the bus. So good on you, Dave, for doing that. Where was Robert and I? Where were the comments from Robert and I?
Well, let me just say this. Sure. Sorry to interrupt, Jim, but I can tell you that this guy does not take blame for anything. This guy deflects at any and all costs. I can go find you quotes from post games past where clearly some of his play calling was the issue, and he deflected it and put it back on the players. This is just who he is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You don't want a coordinator that is like that. You don't want a coach who's like that. You either accept your responsibility in the scheme and you address it and you say, here's what we're going to do to fix it. And you do fix it. You do whatever you can to fix it, but don't ever blame your players, because, you're leading allegedly. And here's my thought on this is, because of the way this has transpired, if for any reason that MJ Morris does not deliver this week, next week, Robert and I, you can kiss it goodbye. I think he is out the door if he does not make some changes to make that offense start to click. Dave Dorn has been at NC State too long now to allow this team to sink into mediocrity, and they're just sort of there. You know, we complained about David Cutcliffe at Duke and about how it was just sort of there. You know, do you accept mediocrity? I don't think Boo Corrigan's the kind of guy who accepts that, and he will look at it and go, you know what? Something doesn't change here. I'm looking right across town, and I'm seeing a situation where we went from mediocrity with David Cutcliffe, who is arguably a good coach. There's no doubt about that. But he could only build the program to a certain degree. And then Mike Elko was brought in. Boom. What do you got? What do you have now? And that happened in 2 seasons. Well, not even 2 seasons yet. And how can you be an NC State fan and look across town and see what they've done at Duke and not want the same thing because you deserve it? You deserve it. So there's got to be some hard questions and answers coming here in the next few weeks. We'll see. We'll talk with Evan from Red and White Podcast next week and see what his thoughts are on this, because it'll gives him a little time to digest what's going to happen under MJ as a starting quarterback. We'll see what happens. Anyway,
yeah, and I actually popped in. He did a post game Twitter Spaces after the game Friday, and I popped in and listened for a little bit, and you could just tell the frustration in his voice, just talking about what had transpired, and
yeah.
I don't blame him. So honestly, like this program should be doing more, and it just isn't.
It's just it has become vanilla, and from our colleague Chris, we've heard that for years. He's never been impressed by Dave Dorn, and of course, I kind of sloughed a little bit of that off. I wanted to see where Dave Dorn was going to go with the program, right? But Chris hit it on the head. Where's the pack, man? I mean, if you want to accept mediocrity and just get by and just be okay, fine. But I don't think that's where Wolfpack fans are mentally. I don't think that's what they expect. I think they should expect more. So it's time to, it's either put up or shut up. So now on the other side of the coin, Pat Narduzzi. My God. We talked a little bit about this last time. I don't know what's going on with this team, but it's just wow. Again, here we have a level of mediocrity that Pitt. Hey, if you live in Pennsylvania, it's about football, man. It's about football. You're in Pitt. Whew, wow. Pittsburgh fans, tough. They want the best. They deserve the best. They expect the best. What are they getting?
Well, obviously Narduzzi's not going anywhere anytime soon. He has too much time left on his contract, and the buy's probably too much for the program. But in a way, he kind of brought this on himself to an extent, because everything was going just fine when they won the ACC with Kenny Pickett. But he's old school and he wants to just run the damn ball. They just haven't been the same. Obviously, they haven't had the same level of quarterback either of Kenny Pickett. But I mean, it worked last year because Izzy Abanikanda was a really good back. Now he's in the NFL. They don't have that kind of running back on this roster this year. Not to mention the line can't protect worth a damn anyways. I watched before we started, I watched back the condensed replay of the game against Virginia Tech on Saturday night, and I couldn't believe that some of the things that were going on with this team, just tackling was bad. Like there was just this isn't the Pitt. I know this is a team that gets to the quarterback, forces you into mistakes. That wasn't really happening. And Kyron Jones is a solid quarterback. He should be the starter of Virginia Tech the rest of the season, but he's not a world beater.
No.
I saw some things in that game on Saturday night that I see some flaws in his game, but they made him look like a world beater because they can't tackle, which is strange for a Pitt coach team.
Yeah, doesn't make any sense. All right, let's get into these games. We started out. I skewered a little bit, but Louisville with a nice 13-10 win. It was a battle. I'll give it that much. And as you pointed out, Will, it was defense on the part of NC State that kept them in the game. It certainly wasn't their offense doing anything. Louisville, I think starting to show what their threshold is here. Going to be a tough week coming up. That's all I can say.
Coming into the game, you can make the argument that Jawar Jordan had been the best player in the league to that point. The NC State defense held him to 32 yards rushing. That tells you a lot that the defense really had an A+ effort. And they forced a couple turnovers. Plummer threw a couple picks. Defense, again, did its job. But Bernard Armstrong couldn't get out of his own way, barely threw for over 100 yards in this game. This is why they made the change to MJ Morris. He's not himself. The running game is just not there. I said that Concepcion, the freshman receiver, looks really good. He looks like he could be something in this offense. There's just not much else there offensively outside him. And Louisville, again, I didn't think they were world beaters either in this game. They looked very pedestrian, but again, they did just enough to win because NC State's ineptitude on offense. And Jack Plummer, again, he looks like a good fit for even though he threw a couple picks, he did have a solid game with 286 yards passing. I don't know. NC State's 1-1 at conference. Louisville sitting at 3-0. Again, we talked about them coming into the year as a very soft schedule, and we thought this might be a game that could slip them up a little bit. I mean, they got Notre Dame coming up this Saturday. It's going to be a real tough game at Pitt. Duke should be tough, and then closing with Miami and Kentucky. There's going to be some tougher games on this schedule that will kind of give us a barometer of where they are, especially upcoming against Notre Dame. But still, they're going to make a bowl. I think that's automatically a successful year one under Braum.
Yeah, I agree there. In this particular instance, considering where you've been and where you are now, 1 year in, or not even a year in, this is a successful season. And having the pieces being slowly put into place and building, Braum is building, I think, a team, if he continues down this path, that will be consistently in the top tier of the ACC and will do very well. Next game up was Clemson and Syracuse. I went with Syracuse in our podcast picks, and of course I got pummeled on this, but mainly because Syracuse has had a good run playing at home against Clemson, and I thought, yeah, why not? I'll give them a shot here. Clemson, more depth, more experience, but still not operating like the Clemson of old. Syracuse showed some positives in there too, but there were a couple of instances like with Schrader, it was like literally a deer in the headlights there for a while, and Clemson was just all over him. I mean, it was insane. I watched a couple of plays where it was almost like he stood there waiting to be tackled. I was like, dude, get rid of the ball. Don't stand there and hold it, which resulted in a couple of plays where, boom, it went the opposite direction.
Yeah, credit to the Clemson defense because they made Garrett Schrader look very pedestrian. Normally Schrader is a beast on the ground, but he only had 24 yards and 1.6 yards per carry in this game. They sacked him. Clemson defense sacked him 5 times. It just shows you there's a very dominant performance. They had 281 total yards in this game. Klubnik looked fine, 263 yards passing, couple touchdowns. They didn't run the ball the greatest. They only had 3.6 yards per carry on the day. But it was a big day from Tyler Brown, 9 catches, 153 yards in this game. It just really, I think this really came down to talent. Clemson is the far and away more talented team.
Yep.
Syracuse obviously they've been banged up out wide. Obviously, no Rondé Gadsden, and they're down a couple other receivers. They're just hurting there, and they just haven't been able to get anything consistent out of the receiver spot. They've been relying just on the running backs and Schrader to really get something going, and that can only go for so long, especially against a talented team like Clemson.
Exactly. Next game up was Boston College over Virginia. That final score 27-24. Boston College on top. I think let me be fair to both of these teams for just a moment. They're having tough seasons. However, I will say that I see some improvement on both sides here. Some stupid stuff, but nonetheless, improvement, and I think some growth. And it's something that you can build on, which is what both teams need. Tony Elliott is in a little more of a building situation than Hafley is at Boston College. I would be a little concerned at this stage of Hafley's career at Boston College that he's having these many problems with his team, but it may be a one-off year. We'll see. I don't think the recruiting has been stellar at all for Boston College, and which makes me think that Hafley may be considering moving on. So we'll see.
You want to talk about a coaching staff where we're going to have real conversations? It's Tony Elliott. I've been one to give him the benefit of the doubt because this is his first time as a head coach. But look what's gone on this year. Hold this stat up. This is courtesy of Tom Fernelli. 10 teams have lost 3 games this season in which they held a lead. And, I'm not going to read all 10 teams. But of all those 10, Virginia's the only team yet to win a game and it has led. Blew a double-digit lead against James Madison. Blew the lead against NC State and lost on the last play of the game. Blew a double-digit lead again in this game. They were outscored 20-3 in the second half. And it came down to crucial situations late in the game where you had 4th and short at the Boston College 37-yard line, I think it was, and you elect to punt down, and you're trailing in this game. I can't defend that.
No,
I can't defend it.
I don't think they can.
I can't defend blowing 3 leads when you have had the type, these incidents. I can't defend the undisciplined nature of this team where you are committing for personal foul penalties in inopportune moments that are giving the other team free first downs and 15 yards in spots where you should be disciplined and set up to win. You could very easily argue they should be 3-2. And don't forget, they were 14 yards away from tying the game against Maryland before the team imploded and they lost 42-14. They almost tied that game had Calandry not thrown the pick in the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
This team should be a lot better than it is just based on the things this offense has done, like just in certain instances. but I'm I this is probably the first time I will say this, and I'm probably in unless something changes, it's probably going to be the case. I don't think Tony Elliott's the right person for this job. When you
Mm.
look at the mistakes this team makes on a consistent basis, the fact that the recruiting is not very good at a school like Virginia, you should. I mean, I'm not saying you're not going to recruit to the level of Florida State, Miami, Clemson, North Carolina, etc. But you should be recruiting at least middle of the pack in the ACC. And right now, they're probably, if not last, close to last in the ACC recruiting. It's unacceptable. And there needs to be some hard conversations with every member. Well, I wouldn't say the defense necessarily. I think the defense is getting better, but the offensive staff
No.
and just the play there has to be some hard conversations about what they're doing here,
Yeah.
because you want to build this program. The crap you're putting out on the field, the undisciplined play, the the mind-numbingly conservative play calls are not going to keep you employed.
These are the types of things they ought to be talking about now, about how to fix it. What do they need to fix it, and how can they make that change? And if they don't implement that by the end of the season, that's when you talk about turnover of staff. And I don't think Tony Elliott's going anywhere. That's my personal judgment, observation based upon a lot of different things. But I will say this, that if he doesn't make some of these hard decisions and move forward with staffing to get the momentum going, at that point, Carlo Williams has got to look at him and say, he wasn't the leader that I thought he was going to be. And can we afford to go another season and further damage the program for whoever fills the bill next?
Mm-hmm.
Tough choices.
Yeah, and let me just, I don't think he's getting fired after the season. I don't think it's fair. I think he should have the ability to make these changes. And maybe Carlos sits down with him and says, "Hey, you got to change things up because this isn't working." And he's got to work, and it has to happen. Otherwise, he's not getting through next season.
Yeah.
Now we shouldn't just sit and talk all about Virginia in this game, because there is some things, especially on a positive side for Boston College, aside from getting a much needed home win. Really like what I saw from Lewis Bond in this game. He's a receiver that's just kind of broken out this year. Had over 100 yards in this game. Had a real nice catch for a touchdown in this game. We're looking for playmakers. That was one of the big questions we had coming into this season with Boston College, is who's going to be a step up and be that next playmaker for this team. And it looks like Bond's going to be that guy.
Well, Halfley needs some good news there, one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Where that goes. Here's this next game.
You haven't even said a word, and I already know what game you're talking about.
It's like the first part of this game, and then when and even when you go back and you look at highlights, it's like, wow, this team is clicking. It looks good. It's doing, and then all of a sudden, those depends. They didn't seal right, and you left a very nasty stain in the bed. Bowling Green rolling to a 38-27 win over Georgia Tech. Now, what the hell?
It's about all you can say, really. By the way, just to go back on what you said about leaving stains on the bed. Oh, that's nasty.
Yeah.
So you want to know where this game was lost for Georgia Tech? in the second and third quarters. In those quarters, Bowling Green outscored them 31-6. Just gonna go on the limb and say you cannot win ball games when you're getting outscored 31-6 over a stretch of a game. And I again, like I went back and watched the condensed game before we started because I didn't get to fully watch this game Saturday afternoon. I watched it bits and pieces along with another game, and I was just trying to figure out what happened. And like after Georgia Tech got out 14-0 or whatever, and it's like looking pretty good. Then you realize this team can't tackle.
Yeah.
This team
Yeah.
and I was kind of looking at them. I'm like, okay, this team can't tackle, but why are they like one of the worst like rushing defenses in college football? And then I saw it. They hit the Bowling Green had this guy go for 138 yards on him, and it was just like people were going up to tackle him, and he would just slip out of him. I just don't know if it's just a lack of basic fundamentals or what, but it it probably explains why Georgia Tech went and made the change to one defensive coordinator and demoting the other one. It's something that's got to get made because it I applaud Brinky for seeing this and immediately fixing it.
Yeah.
Because it's obviously not working. And as I mentioned, Georgia Tech is a pretty bad defense this year, one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. And he sees it and is like, all right, we're just going to do this. Okay, cool. I don't think the offense is that bad, really. I watched Haynes King in this game. Yeah, he threw a couple picks. One of them was certainly not his fault. It was a tip drill that went off like three different players. The other one was just an underthrow, but the idea was there. It was a good idea because the receiver had a step on his man, but it was just underthrown. I think Haynes King is a good decision maker. It's just those couple ball, like to say the one interception was just bad luck. The other one was just an underthrown ball. But I think he's got the right idea. I think he's a good decision maker. He just doesn't quite have the arm strength it looks like right now to make all the throws. Again, but Georgia Tech, they need to run the ball better too. Only averaged 3.3 yards per carry in this game against Bowling Green. That's a pretty inexcusable loss. And like I said, I applaud Brinky for making the changes so instantaneously.
Yeah. I my notes here, run D sucks.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my God. It's like it was like somebody holding the door open for you and allowing them to get 20 yards on you every time. And oh my God. I mean, the defensive line was just porous, and the linebackers, where the hell were they? I mean, it's like, what are they taking a nap?
I'm just pulling up the stats while you were talking there just to see how bad it is. And Georgia Tech ranks 126th out of 133 teams in yards per play given up on the ground.
Wow.
At 5.34. In terms of yards per game, only Louisiana Tech and North Texas are worse. There's your way. There's the way to beat them. And there's some teams in the schedule, one I talked about a little bit ago, that cannot run the football and probably will not be able to beat them as a result.
Yeah. Well, I like Coach Key. I think he's making some things happen there. So yeah. I'll give him pay.
And I think any talk of him on the hot seat, I think, is very premature. Let him work with this team a little bit before we do that.
Hadn't had any time to really. I mean, he's made an impression. There's no doubt, and he's reacting quickly to problems.
No doubt. I mean, look at how much better they were last season when he took over as coach.
Oh yeah.
They actually tried.
Yeah.
But they're just not very talented right now, even though they gave Ole Miss a game for 3+ quarters. Yeah. they still have it in them. They're a pretty solid football team. Maybe at best a borderline bowl team. I don't think they're. I think this a loss like this probably could exclude them for a bowl from a bowl this year. But I don't know. But then again, last week we were talking after they beat Wake Forest. I'm like, oh, they're a little underrated. It's a pretty solid team. Yeah. I was dead wrong about that.
No, I think you were solid. It's in that judgment. It's Wake Forest is not an easy team to beat, and the fact that they did is, I think, still surprises the crap out of me. I mean, you know, let's talk about a game that to be honest with you, sorry Irish, but I was rooting for the Blue Devils all the way on this game, and underdog sort of thing. And Mike Elko has done such a nice job. I was blown away by how this game unfolded. Notre Dame 21, Duke 14. I don't know whether this is telling us one thing or the other, or maybe both. What do you think?
I think Connor O'Neill was spot on in his assessment of this game. When you go back and listen to our interview with him last week, and the game pretty much ended up in the ballpark of where he expected.
Yeah.
Low scoring defensive battle. Uh, it was a good effort by Duke. They just needed to hold Notre Dame on 4th and 16 to win the game, and unfortunately, Sam Hartman got the first down, and then a couple plays later, Audric Estimate blew through the defense and for the game winning touchdown. But he, I get it. He's, like I said, he's been one of the best backs in the country so far. Estimate a couple touchdown runs in this game. And Hartman wasn't that great. I mean, yeah, he threw for 222 yards, but he was only 15 of 30. It just shows just how good the Duke secondary is against them. They're not stars, but they're a good veteran group. And I think that's doing a lot of good things for this defense. On the other side, yeah, Riley Leonard struggled passing the ball, 12 of 27, 134, TD and a pick, ran for 88 yards. Just a terrible terrible ending of the game. Him getting his ankle rolled up on, something I saw a couple times and would care not to see again. I believe it's just a high ankle sprain. At least that's the last I heard of what it could be. So it's not the season, but it's still going to be a few weeks.
Yep.
So I guess if there's a piece of good news, there's that. It won't be the whole season, but the short term, I do have some concerns about Duke, just in what they're going to be able to do. They do have obviously a tough loss here, but then they have NC State coming up. Oh, they have the bye week, and then NC State, Florida State, and Louisville, the last two on the road. I hope that they can get Riley Leonard healthy. Maybe only misses the NC State game, and maybe they can beat NC State without him. But they're going to need him for the other two games.
I can't speak for the offensive side of the game for Duke without Riley, but I can say that everything else that's in place there is certainly, I think, NC State is. I don't know that NC State's got enough in the barrel to take care of Duke. I think that will be a real challenge, but again, with your primary quarterback, offensive playmaker out, that changes the dynamic significantly. We'll find out. I was very impressed by both sides in this game. They're tough teams, and Notre Dame's come a long way in under Freeman in doing well. Elko's done a great job at Duke, and they delivered a game that I thought was there was a lot of preseason hype about the Clemson FSU game, which they delivered on. Didn't expect this one to be the same, but man, this was an awesome game. As a fan of the sport, this was just an incredible game, and it's something that I'm not going to forget watching. A lot of fun. Of course, somebody always ends up on the losing side of this, but nonetheless, this spoke volumes, I think, about both teams, and anybody who's not familiar. And this is the problem when you get national writers or people who are on the West Coast observing this, and they think, well, Duke is a basketball team. How in the world are they doing this to Notre Dame? You haven't been paying attention, which is the usual factor. Duke has a solid football team. Notre Dame is a solid football team. Both these teams being ranked the way they have been in the past and this week makes all the sense in the world. They're both really good teams, and they should have continued success throughout the rest of the season. Last game on our schedule, Virginia Tech lit it up in Blacksburg, and 38-21 over Pitt. We've shared our disappointment in Pitt prior to this. Let's talk a little bit more about the positives of the Hokies here.
Yeah, so I talked about it earlier. Kyron Jones had a big game. I think he should be QB1 going forward. 3 touchdown passes in this game, 228 yards. Bashal Tootin, I thought he ran really well in this game. There were a couple instances where he got stopped, but I thought he ran real hard. He went over 100 yards in this game. There was a ball that Drones threw I think it was in the first quarter. It was the first or second quarter where he hit Daquan Felton in stride on a deeper pass, and it was just a perfect touch for a touchdown. And it was a really nice throw. One I honestly didn't think he could make, but he certainly impressed me here. But they look pretty good in this game. Defense held Pitt to 1.6 yards per carry, and I don't know if that's the just the backs not being good, the line not being good. I don't know, the line's not good, but it's rough. They don't have the talent there at running back like they used to. Same at quarterback. And you look at Phil Dracovic, he was 11 of 22 for 235 yards. I think if I look at it right here, in the first half, he was 3 of 12 passing. And of the 235 yards, 136 of them came on 2 plays. So, yeah, he was. I mean, the second half, he looked better in the second half, but I think that was just a lot more like short stuff and getting more yards after the catch. But he didn't look very good in this game. And like we talked about at the beginning, a lot of issues with this Pitt team, just especially on offense. And I said defensively, they weren't. And let's be real, this game wasn't even that close to me. We talked about it a moment ago. There were a couple plays where Sibo Flemister caught a screen pass, went for a touchdown, and it was pretty poor tackling by Virginia Tech on the play that gave him the touchdown. And then a couple plays later, Jones was back to throw, and as he's getting ready to throw, the ball slipped out of his hands, and Pitt picked it up and went for a touchdown. Outside of that, they didn't do anything. And like I said, this was definitely a case where the score was not indicative of how much of a blowout it was. Like Tech dominated in this game.
Yes, it was a type of game the Hokies needed, and certainly helps bring that out of funk of losing to Marshall, and gives them some hope that things are moving in the right direction. So and you're right, that was a more dominating performance by Virginia Tech, and Pitt did not look good. The Hokies looking better, like some pieces are finally starting to click. And that's been tough with injuries and whatnot to have all that start coming together. but give it another year when you get more recruits in there and people understand the program. It'll be a lot better, and you Hokie fans will have something definitely to be happy about. Saw a lot of people who drove to that game because I was all over the state of Virginia, driving all over the place on on Saturday and Sunday. So I saw a ton of Hokie fans headed to the game really early in the morning. And then the next day, I saw a lot of Pitt fans heading back north. So it was interesting day seeing all the traffic. It's kind of neat to go out and see that sort of thing. I get a chance every once in a while to get to games, but there's so many things that are going on that we certainly don't get a chance to get to games like we used to. And so that's why we got all these multiple screens in our humble abodes. Coming up this week, BC and Army, William and Mary in Virginia. It is Marshall and NC State. That should be an interesting game.
You think?
Yeah. Syracuse.
You look at MG Morse getting his first start.
Yeah. Syracuse and North Carolina, Virginia Tech and FSU, Wake Forest and Clemson, Notre Dame and Louisville, and Georgia Tech in Miami. Those are the games on the schedule. And I want to remind you that we are on YouTube. If you'd like to watch us, make sure that you check us out at ACC Nation. Make sure that you like and follow and subscribe. And we're also available on online radio at ACC Nation. You can join everybody who is listening across the world, because there's people all over the world who have been either tied in with an ACC school or have an interest in college sports on military bases and whatnot across the world, who are listening in on online radio. Thank you so much for listening and joining us. Make sure that you subscribe on your favorite platform, or you can go to accnation.net and listen to us. And of course, if you're into podcasts, make sure that you go to our webpage, accnation.net, and click on the subscribe button. We have, I think, about 17 different ways for you to subscribe and have that sent to you the minute we upload it, and boom, it gets sent to you, whether it's by email, through Apple, Google, Amazon, you name it, we're there. All those platforms. Make sure that you like and you subscribe and follow us. We appreciate it very much. And like I said, coming up, Evan from Red and White Podcast is talking NC State on Monday, October 9th. Dan Bonner, who is covers NCAA men's basketball. He's an analyst and color commentator. He will be opening the door to the season for us on Monday, October 23rd. There's just some of the people who will be joining us. I hope that you will join us as well. For Will and myself, thank you so much. And until next time, cheers.
Boy.